Well, hello and welcome to Around South Jersey. I'm Waren Crescenzo, substituting for Jim Quinn, and we would like to take this opportunity to thank Jim and also Quinn Broadcasting for this time as we discuss an item that occurred way back in 1868 in Vineland, which had significance nationally. It had to do with some women who decided that it was time to start thinking about giving women the right to vote. The little bit of history that I know about women's suffrage in the past is that at one time they could vote, another time they couldn't vote. Also, there was an issue with if you got married, then you couldn't vote. I mean, it was just a mishmash of different things. So, in 1868, my understanding is that Susan B. Anthony, who is the nameplate for women's suffrage, came to Vineland and had a meeting. And after that point, there were several women in Vineland who were definitely motivated to try to do something about women's voting rights. So Portia went to the March 1868 municipal election and tried to vote. She was told, well, you're Mrs. Gage, you're not registered, you can't vote, plus women can't vote. So she left. And she just wanted to get an idea of what people were like at that time and how she would be treated. In November, for the presidential election, she showed up with 171 other women, and they said, we're here to vote. And they said, well, no, you can't vote because women can't vote. They said, well, we're going to vote. We brought our own voting box, our own ballots, and let's go. So the women all voted, and of course the votes didn't really count at that time. So what we did was the Vineland Historical and Antiquarian Society partnered with the Vineland Chamber of Commerce, and we decided to have sort of a reenactment and a celebration of the event. I wanted to mention also that after this event occurred, that it had many articles appear in various newspapers throughout the country, and it also increased the number of protests that were held for women's voting rights. So that's the history in a nutshell of what happened. What we did on September 27th and 28th, we had women voting. We had the actual ballot box was recopied, and we had the women come in of various denominations and take their time to vote. And men were allowed to register, but they were not allowed to vote that day. So that's something from the ordinary, out of the ordinary, you might say. Now, what we did was we had basically like a day and a half of voting, and then on the 28th we had a celebration in the afternoon at Marigny Savoy Inn. And during that time, I talked with some people who were part of the celebration. And let's begin with our Vineland Historical and Antiquarian Society president, Valerie Nyber. We're talking now with Valerie Nyber, who is president of the Vineland Historical and Antiquarian Society Board of Trustees. And this has been quite a day and quite an evening. I know it's been a lot of planning going on over the last several months. Tell us how it all came together.
It has. It's been a lot of planning on our part, and with Dawn and the Chamber of Commerce, they've been wonderful to work with. And it's just we did some extra research and gathering of extra little facts about some of these wonderful ladies. So we've quickly decided this is going to be an ongoing project. There's still a lot to learn. Even just yesterday, I was finding new facts about some of the business owners that were these women that voted. They own their own businesses, a clothing store business, things like that. So there's still a lot that we need to learn, but this is a wonderful start. And we had an open house at the museum where people could reenact the vote. And that was yesterday. And then this morning we did as well. And we were very happy to see, we saw some of the regular faces, the people who come by often, but also a lot of new faces.
Yes, there were. Yeah, it was a very nice crowd that showed up. We had some students from Vineland High School, and they were very interested in the activity as well. I know I've had some social media response from people saying, I never realized this happened in Vineland.
Right.
So it's, it's really an event that's sort of been pushed away into the corner. although Smithsonian did do a story about it.
That's right.
And let's talk about what's happening to our ballot box, the original ballot box.
Yeah, so the Museum of American Revolution in Philadelphia reached out, and they're having a special exhibit upcoming next year. And apparently they have a photo and a little section about our ballot box there already. I've had people say, I saw this in that museum, and a couple other museums apparently also have a photo. But they reached out and asked if they could, if it would go on loan to join them for their museum. So I think it's going to take a little journey across the water, go to Philadelphia, so some more people can get a chance to take a look at it and get some more eyes on it. And it'll be nice to see it in a different museum, still, labeled that it came from Vineland. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and part of this evening also is to celebrate women in business and the Chamber of Commerce, which supports business in the area. So it's very nice to see how two of us came together.
That's
and
right.
Developed this program, and also had a historical context as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So that was Valerie Nyber, president of the Vineland Historical and Antiquarian Society. And as we both mentioned throughout the program and throughout the evening, is that this was sort of a process where we united with the Greater Vineland Chamber of Commerce, and Dawn Hunter, who is executive director, really had really strong feelings about making this happen. So let's take a look at the interview that happened there with Dawn. We're talking now with Dawn Hunter, who is the executive director of the Greater Vineland Chamber of Commerce, and also one of the people who suggested this great idea that we had this program. So let's talk a little bit about how this idea developed in your mind.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, Waren. It's great to talk about it. I am actually a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, so I'll start there. That's a true passion of mine, supporting women. And I took a tour that the Vineland Historical Society offered through Siloam Cemetery, and I found out, I knew the history in Vineland of the 172 women voting. I already knew that, and I thought that was amazing in and of itself. And then I found out that 4 of them were black, and this was last spring. And I said, I have to do something about this. This is amazing history that happened here. So I went home immediately and started forming this plan in my head about a voting reenactment to bring attention to this wonderful history we have here, and a reception to honor those 172 women, and also women in business today, because that goes along with the mission of the Chamber of Commerce. So that's how it came to be. Okay, and of course there were women in business back then. And they basically said, we do all these things, we pay taxes, we run a business, why can't we vote? Exactly. And it's fascinating. We've been learning a lot of information about these 172 women that did own businesses and ran farms and were really very important of the economic engine of the community at that time as well. Well, let's talk about the Chamber of today. Okay, let's do that. So the Greater Vineland Chamber of Commerce is actually 105 years old. And we're the largest organization for businesses in Cumberland County and southern New Jersey. Right now we have about 420 members, and I've been the executive director. It'll be 15 years next spring, so it's been quite a while. We're very active. One of the things we really focus on is advocacy for businesses and legislative issues and things that impact the businesses. So we like to communicate those things so business owners are aware of what's going on. We do a lot of events, such as like this. We do networking events, luncheons. Right now I'm running a 3-part workshop series for entrepreneurship and trying to educate entrepreneurs on what they need to do to get their business going in the 3 stages, which is really interesting. It's been great. Well, since we're talking about women in business, have you found that number keeps growing? Yes, definitely. We have several members that are women that own their own businesses, and I think especially as the generations come along, they don't want to work for someone else, and they like the idea of running their own business, and so it's just great to see. Great new energy. Okay, this has been a great partnership. We really appreciate working with you at the Chamber.
And I think it's been a great day for the city of Vineland as well.
Oh, thank you, Warren. It's been our pleasure. The Vineland Historical Society has been an amazing partner on this event, and we look forward to future collaborations.
Yes, sounds like a great idea. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So that was Dawn Hunter, Executive Director of the Greater Vineland Chamber of Commerce. And we really wish to thank the Chamber for coming up with all the many creative ideas they did, and also the participation in helping to make this a great event. So, where do we go from here? Well, as I mentioned, we had some reenactors who were very much a part of the voting process, and we happen to have two of them here, in the persons of Alan and Jeri Mounier, who served the parts of John and Portia Gage. Welcome.
Welcome. It's nice to be here.
I know in thinking about what happened in history, and I guess the word I'm looking for is kind of failing me right at the moment, but the fact that these were just common people who said, we've had enough. It's time to have us do things because we're doing everything else. Why can't we do the voting part of it? I know even one of the reenactors, Susan Fowler, who played Susan Fowler, but Susan Fowler herself probably invented the original ballot box. And she also never married because at the time, had she married, her farm would have then become her husband's possession. So it's kind of interesting to see how hopefully things are changing over the years. I know my personal thought has always been like, if somebody can do the job, let them do the job. You can't restrict it by gender or color or other things, and just do it, Right. So let's talk about Portia and and how she got this whole process going.
Well, I was asked if I would like to be a reenactor, and they gave me this name, Portia Gage, and little did I know that Portia Gage was really the spearhead of the whole movement in Vineland. She went to vote that one day in March because she wanted to find out what voting was all about. They didn't allow her to vote because she wasn't registered, but she had heard rumors that she would be treated harshly, and the polling places were not suitable for a woman. And she walked in and she was treated quite cordially, and her remarks are that she was treated as if she were in a lecture hall or at church. So there was no harsh treatment of her, no jostling and pushing around. And she realized that voting wasn't scary. It wasn't scary. So she rounded up a lot of her friends, and by November, when it was the presidential election, she had 171 other women that she invited to march down to, I believe it was Union Hall, where they went to go vote. And the women all went together to vote at Union Hall, and the men said, no, you can't vote. And Susan Fowler said, that's okay, we bought our own ballot box. And she had made a ballot box for us out of a blueberry crate. So we just put the ballot box in another location at Union Hall, and 172 women voted that day. So when we reenacted all this, the women started to get really into this. Warren, you were one of the reenactors, and when you told us we couldn't vote, we were like, we were going to vote, and all the women turned around and marched over to their own ballot box and voted. So I know all the women that were there that day really got caught up in the drama of the whole situation. And there were, as Dawn Hunter mentioned, there were 4 African-American women that were included in that. And the women had different aims. They wanted to vote, of course, but some of the women, if you meet some of the reenactors, were dressed in men's clothing or in pants or slacks because they wanted reform of clothing. They wanted women to be able to wear things that were just a little bit more comfortable.
Of course, some had mustaches on too as well. So that was kind of interesting to show up dressed as a man, look like a man.
Yes.
Try to look like a man. How about John Gage? What was his part in all of this?
Well, behind every successful woman, there's a man who supports, and John Gage was certainly supportive of the movement. In fact, of the utopian idea of Vineland. Now, John came out of central New York State, Herkimer County, born in 1802, I believe, moved to Chicago, where he was very successful in the milling business and also in buying land and selling land, living out around Chicago. Although his milling enterprise was very successful, he was not happy with the lack of cleanliness in Chicago, and he decided that he would move. So sometime in the 1860s, he and his wife, Portia, moved to Vineland because they were looking for the clean, healthful environment that Landis advertised for the new city, and also looking for a place where they could live a life that was free and open and accessible to all people. He was very concerned about the equal rights for everybody, men, women, people of all colors. So Vineland seemed to be the exact place for it. He was actually the president of the Women's Advancement Organization. I forget the exact title, but he was very keen on the idea of equal rights for everyone. So he was supportive. And that's one of the reasons probably why Portia and her friends were received cordially when they showed up at the elections. Now, of course, they couldn't vote because that was outside of the law. But it took a little while for the hostilities against women voting in Vineland to emerge. In the beginning, the women were quite cordially received, although they couldn't vote. And of course, they did vote on their own. Now, Portia and John were productive in lots of ways, including making babies. They had lots and lots of babies.
I had 11 children.
Wow.
One of the, and most of those children did not survive into adulthood. But one named John Porcius Gage, in honor of both his parents, was an industrialist who set up a factory for making woodworking equipment, and particularly a new kind of carpenter's plane, which was very successful, much sought after. It was a big improvement over the old wooden block planes. Eventually, the patent for that was sold to Stanley Tools, and it became part of the planes became part of the Stanley catalog. Now, at the museum, we have a number of those planes on display. So, in addition to the ballot box, the original ballot box, which you can see, there are some of the Gage planes, very famous amongst tool collectors and historians of tools. So John was supportive of the feminist movement, and he deceased. He died in 1890, I think, and he predeceased his wife. His body was cremated, and eventually when she went to her reward, his ashes were gathered up and put into her coffin when she was buried. They both are resting in peace in Siloam Cemetery, and you can visit the graves.
Right.
But I believe only Portia's name, I think, appears on this stone. Now, I want to say that the historical context is very important. You have to remember that all of this took place immediately after the Civil War, which was a time of great turmoil in American society. there'd been a tremendous loss of life in trying to quell the rebellion or the Confederacy, and to open American society to all peoples. So naturally, that should have included women as well as formerly enslaved persons. So that kind of set the context for the whole stage here. Now, the Landis, I believe, had utopian ideas in mind when he established Vineland, and that was attractive to people from all over. Many free-thinking people made their way to Vineland, and it all came together in a rather glorious mix of little successes. And that's one of the reasons that Vineland is important. It had connections to Philadelphia, New York, and to many of the places where Landis himself had traveled. He went every place he went, he advertised, and he got people to come to Vineland to live there, and to live a healthful life in the piney woods and grow grapes and produce and all the things that he advertised. So it's an interesting time in our history and formative to the city that we live in now.
Yes, and Charles K. Landis was not only a very intelligent lawyer from Philadelphia, he was also an excellent promoter because of the types of people he attracted. And Vineland schools were never segregated. Many of the free-thinking people invented interesting things that we use every day, even today. We all know about Welch's grape juice. We know about Progresso. Many don't know about skee-ball. Skee-ball was invented in Vineland. Mason jars were invented in Vineland. Marshmallow fluff was invented in Vineland. So, a whole bunch of things that are out there.
There's a cultural triumph for you.
All right. We're talking about the Vineland Historical Society and the event that occurred in 1868 affecting women's voting rights. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
Many people treat their health like a game. With Complete Care Health Network, it's easy to start your healthcare journey. Just select from our specialties and schedule online, by phone, or on our app. Our entire team communicates with one another, so everyone works together on your total health. Plus, we make it even easier with all of these additional benefits. Level up your health with us. Complete Care Health Network. No games, just great health care for everyone.
At Mintz Insurance, we're proud to have been serving our customers for nearly 80 years, offering 30 different insurance products for your auto, home, and business. And to help ensure that you're getting the best rates possible, we give you up to 3 quotes for every policy, so you can choose what's right for you. At Mintz, we're part of the community, local representatives, supporting events, and proud of it. It's part of who we are. Mintz Insurance. Call today and find out how we can help you save on insurance, or visit us at mintzinsurance.com.
Family relics and antiques are a part of Vineland history. Consider donating them to the Vineland Historical and Antiquarian Society, 108 South 7th Street in Vineland. And while you're there, take a tour of the museum. Call 856-691-1111 for additional information, or visit discovervinelandhistory.org. We're preserving yesterday for tomorrow.
Hey, check this out. Hernia repair. That ain't nothing, man. Kidney surgery. That's nothing. Gallbladder removal.
That's nothing. Spinal repair. I don't see nothing.
Exactly.
Minimally invasive robotic surgery at Inspira Health. Scar so small, it's almost like nothing ever happened.
Welcome back. Today we're talking about the Vineland Historical Society, the museum itself, also a special event that occurred in Vineland in 1868 regarding women's voting rights. And I just wanted to touch on the subject once again. I know we've been talking about how 172 women bravely showed up to do this voting because, it was the kind of thing where women didn't do things like that. And women of color especially didn't do things like that at those times. So it was very interesting to see that these brave women showed up and said, we're voting, even though they were told they could not. They said, yes, we can. We have our own ballot box, our own ballots, and we are voting. And it did make national significance around the United States. It caused additional protests, and to think that it all began right here in Vineland in 1868. So we've also talked about some of the reenactors we've had who decided to pick up certain roles and dress appropriately for the occasion. So we have a couple right now we're going to show you, and I think you'll like these two and their spirited ways of protesting. Right now we're talking with a mother and daughter duo who were reenactors for the event, the women's voting event in Vineland. Let's first start off with Dr. Elizabeth Arthur. Tell us a little about the part you played as the reenactor.
I played Mary Green, and I'm Henrietta Crawford's mother. I moved to New Jersey from Maryland into Mannington, which is in Salem County, and then on to Vineland. And that's where Makima got her our daughter got her roots in being part of the suffrage movement.
Okay, and also the daughter part, who I understand had a lot to say back then. This is Makima Douglas, and your person was?
Henrietta Crawford.
Right. Tell us about Henrietta.
Well, Henrietta was a firecracker, to say the least. She was very passionate and courageous during a time where it wasn't common for women to be that outspoken. She was an advocate for women and women's rights. And she was even an evangelist. She got into so much. I heard it being described as getting into some good trouble. She was even kicked out of her church, which we know in Vineland as Mount Pisgah, over some of her opinions or her outspoken ideas. However, there was another pastor that voted her back in that same day. So her whole life was spent on advocating for children and those in need. And she took some big chances, and she made some bold moves, and we have a lot to learn from her stance.
Okay. And because of all their efforts, we had some positive results. It took a while for it to happen. Thanks, ladies, very much.
Thank you.
And while we're on the topic of reenactors, the person who serves on our board as secretary and acting treasurer, Naomi Ungraldi, was also one of the reenactors for this event. Right now we're talking with Naomi Ungraldi, who serves as secretary and acting treasurer of the Vineland Historical Antiquarian Society. And this certainly has been quite a day for all of us, the Chamber, the City of Vineland, the Historical Society, and you were one of the reenactors. So let's talk a little bit about your person. We know that many of these people were average women who just decided it was time to say something and do something about getting the right to vote.
So, Warren, there was 172 women who came out that day and voted. A lot of the women we don't know anything about other than their name and an address where they lived. But we do know something about the person I portrayed, and her name was Mary Tillotson. So Mary Tillotson believed in dress reform, which meant she dressed in pants or pantaloons, bloomers, whatever you would like to call it. She wore pants, but she also wore a long frock coat over these pants. Now, the time was 1868 into the 1870s. At that time, fashion in America, women wore corsets, women wore dresses, women were not wearing pants, but she did. Was she ridiculed? I'm sure she was. But for her, they were practical. and she wore them. And there was another reenactor also, who's not here today, but her name was Susan Fowler. She also believed in dress reform. So we portrayed these two women who were ahead of their times in many ways.
Yeah, and in the case of Susan Fowler, she decided to stay single because if she owned a farm, and if she became married, the farm would actually belong to her husband and not her.
That's right. She was truly an independent woman.
Yes. Certainly were strange laws in those days.
Yes, yes. So, these women, aside from voting, which was a wonderful thing, also believed in women's rights. They believed taxation without representation was a crime, and they believed that they should have the right to vote. And good for them for exercising that right.
Yes, and let's talk a minute about the Historical Society itself.
Sure.
Of course, we have the original ballot box. We have a nicely made replica of the ballot box.
We do.
And we have all kinds of treasures there for people to observe.
We do. We have a wonderful museum. If you haven't been there, we encourage you to come out and see our museum and see the treasures that we have. Vineland was very progressive when it was founded, and they were also very smart because they founded the Historical Society just 3 years after the city of Vineland was founded, and they knew how important it was to preserve everything, and they did.
And many things have been preserved there for many guests to come and see. We welcome your visitation to the museum. Right now, our hours are not exactly cast in stone, so to speak. So if you would call our number, 856-691-1111, or go to discovervinelandhistory.org. You can get a lot more information about when we're open. And if you call us, we can answer many questions.
Yes. And Warren, we're also doing monthly open houses. And that's another time where people can come out, take a self-guided tour. We post the dates of our monthly open houses on our website. We also post them on social media. So we do have a pretty large Facebook presence. You can always like our Facebook page and find out more information about upcoming events when we're doing our open houses. And interesting items or finds are also posted. So please follow us on social media.
As I say, it's your museum, not ours. We're just the current caretakers.
That's all. But we want to share it with everyone.
Thanks very much, Naomi.
Thank you, Warren.
So that was Naomi Ingraldi, Secretary and Acting Treasurer for the Vineland Historical and Antiquarian Society. I wanted to mention I also serve as Vice President, and Alan is also another one of our trustees, and Jeri is involved in some of the committees and other things that go on over there. We're located at 108 South 7th Street. There are so many people who say, I never knew this place was here. That's right. It's kind of interesting, or I was there when I was in 3rd or 4th grade.
Right.
But we've been there for a long time now. The current building was built in 1910, and we certainly appreciate the donations people have made over the years in monetary goods, but also in relics of various kinds and artifacts. Let's talk just for a minute, too, about the reception itself. I thought that was kind of a fun event. And when I was doing some of the interviews, I thought it was kind of funny looking at the tapes now that it was a rather loud background. And our producer, George, there had to work to get the sound out of it. So you see people dancing and you don't hear any music. I thought that was rather interesting. So let's talk about the museum. What can we say about the museum that would be of interest?
Well, the museum is a wonderful place. If you haven't been there, you don't know what you've missed. And I would say that the museum is a reflection of the society's name. It's the Vineland Historical and Antiquarian Society. Now, most people don't know what antiquarian means. Antiquarians are people who learn about the past, the natural past, the human past, by looking at things that have survived from antiquity and from more modern times. So the museum is a really fascinating assemblage. It contains a very fascinating collection of all sorts of things, from artworks, paintings, sculptures, to objects of natural history. There's a big log of petrified wood, for example. All sorts of items that were made and used in Vineland, and so forth. Now, one of the interesting displays is the original display case from when the society was first formed. Before they had a building, members of the society would put items into a glass-topped case and take it from house to house so that people could see some of the relics. There's a knife in there. There's a cast of a huge pear. Vineland was established partly because you could grow fruits and vegetables and whatnot in the soil. So there's a cast of I think they said like 14 pounds or something. It's huge, but a cast of a plaster cast of a big pear. There's a cap from a Civil War soldier, a deer antler, some tongs used for picking flower buds or whatever off of tobacco plants, or maybe for taking pests, worms and whatnot off of the tobacco plants. And we still have that, and you can look at it and see the handles that was carried around from place to place. So antiquarianism is still alive and well in the society. The only problem with that word is that it's hard to say, and it makes the name very long. So we tend to say Vineland Historical Society or the museum. I would encourage everybody to make some opportunity to see when the place is open. It's open. There's monthly visitation days. There's open houses frequently. We have lots of events outdoors, and when those events take place, then of course the museum is always open, and we have tours. A docent will lead you around. We have school children come with their teachers and supervisors. It's really a lot of fun to visit, and you'll learn a lot. Room from room, we have got the great room, which is the lecture hall, and that is surrounded by displays, including the one that contains the ballot box, but also paintings of notable people. John and Portia Gage, their wedding portraits stand above the dais. One room contains artifacts relating to the glassmaking industry in Vineland, with all sorts of tools and examples of glassware, a rather large collection of paperweights. We have a room that's dedicated to the memory of Frank Andrews, who was really one of the early inspirations for the society. He actually donated his property to the society, and that's where the building now stands. He was also instrumental in getting the early Vineland Library built, the Carnegie Library on the 6th and Elmer. It's just one block from the Historical Society building. Both buildings designed by an architect from Philadelphia, George Savage, who's quite famous. Upstairs, there's displays of Indian or Native American artifacts. There's a room that's dedicated to the Civil War with armaments, uniforms, a saddle. There's a drum up there, an original drum. And scattered around on the mezzanine, if that's the proper word for it, there's a spinning wheel, there's a laundry tub, there's one section that deals with medicine, artifacts from the early Newcomb Hospital. And then we also have the Landis room, which contains the library of Charles Landis and artifacts relating to his life. There's all sorts. It's really a fascinating place to see. Your time would be well spent to come and visit.
And the best part is it's free.
Yes, there's never a
We do
charge.
accept donations of various kinds, and memberships are very inexpensive, starting around $25 on up. We have business memberships. We have any number of ways you can help us with some of our future plans, too, by your donations. Let's go back now to the reception that occurred following the completion of the voting. You know, I never did hear what the total vote was.
No. We didn't reach 172.
We did not?
I was hoping we'd have 172 women vote, but I think we were short. We were in the 80s, I believe.
But we did have certainly a wide variety of people show up who wanted to vote.
Oh, yes, that's true. In fact, one of the discoveries that keep cropping up when our President Val and others go into the vault, they find things that no one has seen for a long time. And one of the items that was found was a scroll with the names of all the 172 women who voted the first time round. And when all rolled out, it's 12 feet long. So at the voting day for the event that we held, there was also a scroll, and you could sign up for that. And so now we have 2 scrolls.
And that'll be preserved for future history.
Yes, that's right.
Talking about the things that crop up, they were doing some work measuring and looking at the original ballot box, and they actually found some pieces of paper or ballots that were still in the box, and they carefully extracted those. So we have some pieces of not necessarily the 1868 vote, but the ballot box was used many times.
Yes, it was. I'm not sure exactly how many times that was used, but I know it did happen more than once. We think about the 1868 date, but we kept pushing until it finally happened. 1920, and I understand that Wyoming was really the first state to enact women's voting rights. Getting back to the reception, though, that occurred after all the voting was completed, we had one day someone called and asked about performing a song. And I'd like to show this interview, which occurred at that reception, and an original song about the women's voting rights of 1868.
We love our ballot box. We love our history. And when other people are also share this excitement, it really, really makes us, it gets us so excited, because I'm like, it's not just us. This is not just us that is, obsessed with this history. Other people are excited and also know that we need to share this, and more people need to know. So thank you so much for coming in and having this idea. And you and your whole group was so wonderful to work with. We appreciate it. I'm also so proud of my board of trustees. We've gone through a transition here. The museum currently is completely run by volunteers and our board of trustees, and I think we're doing a darn good job. So thank you so much. Thank you. I would also like to acknowledge and thank our fabulous reenactors. They were at the museum yesterday and this morning, and I know it was mentioned before, they not only did they come dressed the part, they were researching the people they're reenacting and helping tell the story. And so I'm gonna, if you would just stand when I call your name. Jeri Mounier was our Portia Gage. Mounier was our wonderful supportive John Gage. Makima Douglas, thank you so much. You were Henrietta Crawford. Dr. Elizabeth Arthur was Mary Green, Henrietta Crawford's mother. Deb Ein was Phoebe Campbell. Grace Yusufari was Sarah Butterfield. Diane Pease was Deborah Butler. Rose Burke was Susan Fowler. Shirley Giddens was Mrs. O.F. Stevens. Sheila Kennelly was Margaret Pryor, and Naomi Ingraldi was our very own Mary Tilliston. And I know it was mentioned also that we will be having a short documentary coming up featuring these lovely humans, so keep watch for that. And I just want to say that I am so proud to be honoring these trailblazing women, remembering their courage, and I urge you to continue telling stories like this. Stories like theirs. I encourage you to fight for what you believe in, challenge the status quo,
and continue to make your own history. Thank you all so much for joining us. I am also pleased to announce that we have a wonderful performance coming up. Please welcome Lisa Stewart Garrison and Linda Jean Bell, who will be performing the Blueberry Box Ballad, They Would Not Be Deterred.
This song, sometimes a song will come to me in a bolt of lightning. This song took almost 3 years to finally make its way to where it is today. When I first wrote it, I wrote it about women suffragists in New York. I had made a pilgrimage to Seneca Falls, and it was 2020, the 100th anniversary of the first time women voted in the state of New Jersey. And as I researched some of the women, I got very interested in a woman named Matilda Jocelyn Gage. She happened to be married to your brother, John. She was living in upstate New York, and she was not just a suffragist, but also an advocate for Native American people. She'd been given a name, She Who Carries the Sky, by the Iroquois, and she was described by Gloria Steinem as the woman ahead of the women of our time. Then I learned about her sister-in-law, and I had no idea, like many of you, that the women in Vineland had voted in 1868, and that in fact this was the first Civil Disobedience Act that would then be followed by many others in the rest of the nation. So really, I began to realize that in our own backyard, American history was made. And so the song changed completely. And now we'd like to perform for you this Linda Bell, wonderful performer, happens to have a wash tub bass, which seemed like the perfect metaphor for the blueberry ballot box. So, without further ado. In 1868 in Vineland, where the fields grow green, came the largest women's suffrage gathering that this country'd seen. On election day at Union Hall, Portia Gage had tried to cast a vote for mayor, but her ballot was denied. That November, women lined up unwilling to wait. They brought along a ballot box and old blueberry crate. 172 women sought to have a say, as black and white together cast symbolic votes that day. They would not be deterred, insisting they be heard. Some might ridicule or heckle, and they would not be deterred. Portia Gage of Vineland, through your deeds and words, you wrote and spoke to get the vote and would not be deterred. Henrietta Crawford was in the room that day. She fought for suffrage and to raise domestic workers' pay. She shooed away the guards so women could participate in the largest women's suffrage act to date. As activists and orators arrived from far and wide, Vineland was the suffrage center and local pride. Lucy Stone, she spoke in town, and so did Susan B. Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass, anyone could see. They would not be deterred, insisting they be heard. Some might ridicule or heckle them, they would not be deterred. Henrietta Crawford, through your deeds and words, you spoke and wrote to get the vote and would not be deterred. Pecker Fowler sold blueberries at the Grange. She fought for suffrage 30 years, envisioned social change. Wore trousers in her Vineland field, worked for dress reform, till one day women wearing pants to work became our fashion norm. If women cannot vote, she wrote in 1868, we make up half the populace within the Garden State. Give back the taxes I have paid with interest, do you see? If my vote will not be counted, taxing me's just robbery. They wouldn't be deterred, insisting they be heard. So I ridicule or heckle them, they would not be deterred. Susan Pecker Fowler, through your deeds and words, you wrote and spoke to get the vote and would not be deterred. Though New Jersey's 1915 voting referendum failed, the suffragists kept working and refused to be derailed. 50 years after the Vineland vote, we met our suffrage goals when scores of women in the county cast their ballots in the polls. Upon the steps of Ivy Hall in Bridgeton they did cheer. Could true equality for women now be drawing near? It all presaged a better day, a vision born of strife, when women would hold office and take stands in public life. They wouldn't be deterred, insisting they be heard. So I ridicule or heckle them, they would not be deterred. Oh, suffragists of Cumberland, courageous, true, and bold, you spoke and wrote to get the vote. Long may your tale be told. You spoke and wrote so we could vote. Long may your tale be told.
And that was an original song supporting the cause of women's voting rights back in 1868 with Lisa Stewart Garrison and Linda Jean Bell. We'll be right back in a moment.
I'm Mayor Anthony Finucci. If you're looking for the right location, think Vineland, New Jersey. Our pro-business approach is supported by financial incentives, workforce development programs, and other resources which can give your business a competitive edge. Whether you're starting a new business or expanding to new markets, our business environment, infrastructure, accessibility, and quality of life make Vineland an ideal location. More information about how we can help your business grow can be found at vinelandcity.org. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season.
Many people treat their health like a game. With the Complete Care Health Network, it's easy to start your healthcare journey. Our mental health services focus on the emotions and behaviors that affect your overall well-being and features psychiatric, counseling, and addiction services, including our exclusive Fresh Start program, designed to help combat the opioid epidemic in our communities, plus all the other specialties you expect from Complete Care. Level up your health with us. The Complete Care Health Network. No games, just great healthcare for everyone.
At Mintz Insurance, we're proud to have been serving our customers for nearly 80 years, offering 30 different insurance products for your auto, home, and business. And to help ensure that you're getting the best rates possible, we give you up to 3 quotes for every policy, so you can choose what's right for you. At Mintz, we're part of the community, local representatives, supporting events, and proud of it. It's part of who we are. Mintz Insurance. Call today and find out how we can help you save on insurance, or visit us at mintzinsurance.com.
Family relics and antiques are a part of Vineland history. Consider donating them to the Vineland Historical and Antiquarian Society, 108 South 7th Street in Vineland. And while you're there, take a tour of the museum. Call 856-691-1111 for additional information, or visit discovervinelandhistory.org. We're preserving yesterday for tomorrow.
We've been talking about the Vineland Historical and Antiquarian Society, and also a special event that occurred back in 1868, the retelling of the event and the celebration of the event as well. And any final comments about that day and what happened? I think it was just an amazing weekend for us.
Yes, a little bit of really not well-known history for Vineland. And the event itself was a lot of fun and meaningful in lots of ways. And I'd just say, come see the museum and learn about your history.
Right. It was interesting to all the people who participated realized how important it is for us to vote and to how hard fought the whole thing was for women. And it's important for us to go out and cast our vote.
And it all occurred starting here in Vineland. Kind of amazing.
Yes.
All right. So the Vineland Historical Antiquarian Society is located at 108 South 7th Street in Vineland. We've been in that building since 1910. We have a major fundraising project going on to attempt to raise $2 million so we can expand it, keep it in its original appearance, have more exhibition space and presentation space, add an elevator and ADA-approved bathrooms. So we'd like to make it totally barrier-free for everyone who would like to attend. There have been, various ways of running this museum in the past. We feel that this museum belongs to the public, and we really encourage them to come out and support it as well. So on behalf of Alan and Jeri, we thank you very much for your participation today.
My pleasure.
Also, many thanks to Jim Quinn and Quinn Broadcasting and to George. And thanks very much for watching.
This has been a QBC television production in association with our partners and sponsors. QBC broadcasts on Comcast Cable Channel 22 and live streams its programming on Facebook and YouTube. All rights reserved by Quinn Media and QBC, programming that serves the South Jersey market.